In my opening remarks last night, I noted that in the region, a number of Asia-Pacific states have taken new defense diplomatic initiatives, and there is a special vibrancy to the bilateral and multilateral defense cooperation that is taking place, a multitude of exercises, a large number of bilateral cooperation agreements, a great deal of discussion on intelligence sharing, especially on some of the delicate issues of terrorism and human trafficking taking place in the region. And we wanted to make certain that there was a plenary at the dialogue that examined these new forms of security collaboration in Asia. And it's fantastic that we have three distinguished ministers to address this topic here today. I will ask them to do so in the order in which they appear in our formal agenda. I'll make a brief introduction of them each first and then ask them to address us. We have, since 2002 at the Shangri-La Dialogue, every single year had the honor of receiving the Minister of Defense of Japan, and I'm delighted that Jen Nakatani, the Minister of Defense of Japan, is helping to complete that perfect record of attendance of Japanese defense ministers here. We are really honored for the first time to receive General Ryacudu, the new Minister of Defense of Indonesia, a vitally important ASEAN state with a new government whose policies the international community is keen better to understand, and also really pleased that Inderjit Singh, the Minister of State for Defense of India, is here. The Prime Minister of Singapore last night mentioned the importance of India's role in what some styled not the Asia-Pacific, but the Indo-Pacific region, and certainly the new Indian government has demonstrated a determination and resolve to be seen as a player, not just in diplomatic instances such as the East Asia Summit, but also generally in its engagements with the countries of the region, and we look forward to hearing more from the Minister. So with those introductory remarks, and now that the room is happily settled, may I please invite Jen Nakatani, the Minister of Defense of Japan, to address the 14th Shangri-La Dialogue.
Dr. Chipan, everyone of IISS, Shangri-La Dialogue にお招き。
Well, thank you for inviting me to the Shangri-La Dialogue. Minister of Defense of Indonesia, Mr. Ryamizard Ryacudu, it is a pleasure to meet you again here. And Union State Minister, Minister of Defense of India, Mr. Singh, this is the first time to meet you, and very much happy to meet you. Now, about 15 years ago, at the very first Shangri-La Dialogue, I had the opportunity to attend as Japanese Defense Minister. Every time the Shangri-La Dialogue goes into headlines, it reminds me of that time. It is truly an honor for me to be able to attend this meeting as Minister of Defense again, this time around. During the first meeting that I attended, Mr. Chao Chi-ping was a defense minister. Mr. Teo was the defense minister, and now I was able to meet him now in his post as deputy prime minister. I'm very happy. Now, in the first meeting, I proposed to hold defense ministerial meeting among Asian Pacific countries on a regular basis. I am delighted beyond words as we witness Shangri-La Dialogue serving as the venue for such meeting. I would like to express my deep respect to Dr. Chipman, and all the people who have been working very hard for every success of the Shangri-La dialogue. And I'd like to express my greatest respect to Prime Minister Lee and the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Teo, and all the people in the government of Singapore for the continual support extended to such efforts. Also, taking this opportunity, I would like to convey my heartfelt condolences to the passing of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the great leader of the Singapore government. The Asia-Pacific region that we live in enjoys historic economic growth. On the other hand, in the security arena, it is often said that multilateral security frameworks in Asia-Pacific are still lagging far behind compared with those in Europe. That said, however, ladies and gentlemen, please recall our actual track record. Even with some serious existing security challenges, we have been enjoying peace since the end of the Cold War. We have been actually achieving success stories, not only in the economic field, but also in the security arena. Success stories are something that we have created. So what made this success story possible? In short, it is the utmost efforts that you and the countries in the region have made so far. For example, the solidarity and the open nature of ASEAN, bilateral alliances centering on the US, the stable military presence of the United States, and its ongoing policy of rebalancing, multilateral frameworks such as ARF, ADMM, and ADMM+, military-to-military cooperation in the region, and efforts to increase transparency in the defense policies of each country, which has been sought since the establishment of ARF. By fully utilizing these various frameworks and relationships, tailored efforts have been made for each challenge in Asia-Pacific region. Against this backdrop, ASEAN countries have been playing essential roles. In this sense, ASEAN centrality is and should remain the basic principle of the region, and Japan opposes any attempt to disturb this. Security challenges will never be solved or disappear on their own. If we leave any unlawful situation unattended, order will soon turn to disorder, and peace and stability will be lost forever. Our success stories in the Asia-Pacific region are the products of our accumulated efforts in solving each challenge. And the following three principles have overarching importance. 1. States shall make their claims based on international law. And 2. States shall not use force or coercion in trying to drive their claims. And states shall seek to settle disputes by peaceful means. So these are the very important three principles. However, it is deeply regrettable that even at this very moment, vast land reclamation and construction of seaports and airstrips are going on at a rapid pace in South China Sea. There are attempts to try to change the status quo in the East China Sea as well. The countries in the region, including Japan, are concerned about such actions. So now let me once again call to the people in this region. As long as we wish to walk together, the peaceful rise will never be blocked. We are responsible for the creation of the future, working together on an equal footing without exerting pressure to hand over the peace and stability of this region to future generations. I hope and expect that all the countries, including China, will behave as a responsible power. For instance, to developing the code of conduct for the South China Sea soon should be a good example of walking the walk, not just talking the talk. That is the important part. Let me cite the words of the Chinese great thinker Lao Tzu. If you know contentment, you will never be disgraced. If you know moderation, you will never be in danger. To know you have enough is to be immune from disgrace. To know when to stop is to be preserved from perils, in other words. Would you not agree that now is the time to follow these words?
世界ではどの
In today's world, no country can achieve its security on its own. It is now extremely important for countries to work together as partners. Japan, under the banner of proactive contribution to peace, based on the principle of international cooperation, will promote security collaboration around three pillars. The first pillar is Japan-US alliance. On April 27th, we established the new guidelines for Japan-US defense cooperation in order to evolve our alliance with the U.S. Today, I would like to discuss 3 points regarding the new guidelines. First, the guidelines will realize seamless cooperation with the U.S. from peacetime to emergencies in order to ensure Japan's peace and security. In the world today, security risks can spread instantly. To respond to such risks in a timely manner, seamless cooperation is vital. Secondly, the new guidelines fully reflect the expanded scope of the alliance cooperation. In order to be prepared for risks that quickly spread across domains and geographical boundaries, Japan and the U.S. will further deepen cooperation to ensure peace and stability of the Asia-Pacific and beyond, as well as in addressing emerging strategic domains such as space and cyberspace. Third, we attach importance to cooperation with other partners. Japan and the U.S. will promote capacity building as well as trilateral and multilateral security and defense cooperation vis-à-vis our other partners. Japan and the U.S. have already been working on this. For instance, our vessels conducted a joint cruise in the South China Sea last year for about a month from early October. So Japan and the U.S. have been conducting joint training in the South China Sea, cooperating in a concrete manner to contribute to maritime security in the region. The Japan-U.S. alliance has and will continue to contribute to peace and stability in the region. The second pillar is Japan's own effort. After the end of World War II, Japan started out on our path with deep remorse over the war. Never have we averted our eyes from the fact that our actions brought suffering to the people of Asian countries. In this regard, the Abe administration upholds the position of previous Japanese administrations. It is on that basis that Japan has been doing its utmost in the pursuit of peace and prosperity of the Asia-Pacific region. Currently, the National Diet is having discussions on the legislation for peace and security. The new legislation is for Japan to contribute even more proactively to global peace and stability, joining hands with the international community under the banner of proactive contribution to peace based on the principle of international cooperation. Now let me address one important point at this juncture. Since the end of World War II, Japan has consistently followed the path of a peace-loving nation under the Constitution of Japan, while strictly adhering to an exclusively defense-oriented policy, not becoming a military power, and observing the 3 non-nuclear principles. In developing our new legislation for peace and security, this philosophy of Japan remains rock solid and will never change. Through the National Defense Program Guidelines, the new guidelines for Japan-U.S. defense cooperation, and deliberation on legislation for peace and security, we illustrate specific details of our defense policies with transparency. If you take a good look at our effort, I'm confident that you will be fully convinced of my message. I believe that transparency in defense policy is vital for responsible nations who promote security cooperation in the international community today. The third pillar is establishment of a foundation for working together hand in hand with the countries of the region. To achieve this, relevant countries need to keep pace and cooperate with each other. In this context, I would like to propose an idea that may guide the countries who come to the Shangri-La dialogue. We may call it the Shangri-La Dialogue Initiative, or SDI, which consists of the following 3 elements. First, wider promotion of common rules and laws at sea and in the air of the region. To this end, let us support effort in advancing knowledge to secure safety and freedom of navigation and overflight, and actively promote joint exercises using CUES, Code of Unplanned Encounters at Sea, as the Japanese SDF and the Philippine Navy did about 2 weeks ago. We must consider measures to prevent accidents involving submarines, which are being deployed in this region as well. Second, maritime and aerospace security. In order to protect regional waters that are vital as our sea lanes, it is extremely important for ASEAN nations to enhance capabilities for maritime domain awareness and ISR. Unfortunately, the missing Malaysian airplane is yet to be found. But with a system that can monitor and control the regional aerospace around the clock, we would be able to enhance air safety further. Third, improvement of our disaster response capability. Natural disaster is a common challenge in this region. In addition to bilateral cooperation in enhancing such capability, Japan attaches great importance to enhancing disaster response capability of the region as a whole by synergizing the regional disaster prevention bases such as ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Center, AHA Center, and Singapore's Information Fusion Center, IFC. As the recent massive earthquake that hit Nepal shows, relief is required as soon as disaster strikes. We therefore believe We need our military authorities to look at how we can further streamline procedures for rapid deployment of aircraft to disaster-stricken areas. Japan is determined to put the Shangri-La Dialogue Initiative, or SDI, into practice and to work closely with the countries of the region. Speaking of SDI, people of older generations like myself would recall the United States Strategic Defense Initiative. But the SDI I propose today is not the SDI of the Cold War era, but an SDI in which we work together to tackle security issues of the 21st century. It is this new SDI that I would like the younger generation here today to remember. And I hope that both the old and new generations will understand and support the new SDI. What do you think? The Asia-Pacific region has woven success stories not only in economy but also in security despite our challenges. It is the responsibility of every one of us here today to let these success stories continue. Japan, in addition to our efforts and alliance with the U.S., will further deepen our cooperation with ASEAN member states, Australia, India, South Korea, and Europe. The important thing is to not let differences discourage us from having communication and preventing unexpected incidents. Problems do exist. That is precisely why we must continue to communicate. And we talk to China about or communication mechanisms as well. Our dialogue for or door for dialogue with other countries is always open. I have served as a ground self-defense force officer. During that period, I spent every day in harsh training, disciplining myself. For the last 60 years, Japan SDFs have devoted themselves to undergoing harsh training and developing strengths for the sake of peace. My experience is only a small part of that. Japan will, with its strength, fulfill a much greater responsibility for the future of our success story in the Asia-Pacific region. For this purpose, we are now working to develop our new legislation for peace and security. Based on the new guidelines, we will progress defense cooperation, continue supporting the stationing of the U.S. forces in Japan, support U.S. policy of rebalancing, and strengthen our alliance with the U.S. And with the countries of the region based on the Shangri-La Dialogue Initiative I discussed earlier. We will cooperate to establish foundations for working together. Let me conclude my speech today by restating our promise that Japan is determined to contribute even more actively to global peace and stability under the banner of proactive contribution to peace based on the principle of international cooperation. Thank you very much.
Nakatani-san, domo arigato. Thank you very much for proposing the three-part Shangri-La Dialogue initiative, and I very much hope that in your bilateral and trilateral meetings, and perhaps even at the ministerial lunches here, you will be able to advance that initiative and see how it can be carried forth in practice in cooperation with other states. Thank you very much also for reminding us of your participation in the first Shangri-La Dialogue, and delighted to see you again 14 years later. May I now invite the Deputy Prime Minister, may I now invite the Minister of Defense of Indonesia, General Ryacudu, to address the Shangri-La dialogue. We have always benefited from the perspective of Indonesia at the Shangri-La dialogue, and I'm delighted that you, sir, are addressing us again today. Thank you.
His Excellency, the Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore, and the Minister of Defense of Singapore, my distinguished fellow Defense Minister, honorable participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the kind hospitality, and I feel so privileged to attend this esteemed Shangri-La Dialogue event 2015, subsequently to deliver a perspective on the subject of new form of security collaboration in Asia. In the second session of the plenary, I would like also to commend and extend my sincere appreciation to the government of Singapore, especially the Minister of Defense of Singapore, for convening this important event. And the topic of my presentation will be on developing the effective collaboration to tackle common factual threat as a realization of forging new form of security collaboration in Asia. By this 2015, the Organization of ASEAN celebrates its 48 years of anniversary, where the member state has enjoyed a long-standing of strong cooperation since its establishment in 1968. This organization is established based on genuine friendship, interdependence, and respect for equal rights and self-determination of other people. ASEAN has also consistently reflected its strong commitment to support peace and stability in the region. Now ASEAN has evolved from an organization comprised of friendly members to be a big brotherly family organization. The impact of globalization has prompted a more dynamic interstate relation in the geopolitical constellation. The consequences of this development has raised the mutual and common challenges faced by the ASEAN member states. I would like to divide such threats perception into two kinds. The first one is a non-factual threat, such as an aggression from other member states, which I consider quite unlikely to happen. While the second of the threat perception is the defined or the factual threat, and such current threat which we currently face, such as the first, our factual threat is the terrorism and radicalism. Natural disasters such as flood, earthquake, tsunami, volcano eruption, forest fire, pandemic disease, the outbreak of infectious disease, and such as Ebola. And the fourth one is the piracy and maritime security and theft of national resources. And the fifth one is illicit incursion, natural resources poaching, and mineral poaching. And the next one is separatism and insurgency. And then the next one is cyber attacks and information warfare. And the last one is smuggling and abuse of narcotics or drugs. The consequences of this geopolitical constellation have raised common interests among nations as grown to conduct mutual interaction and cooperation. Therefore, an indispensable ideal structure and mechanism of cooperation are needed to tackle these aforementioned factual threats through sharing information and intelligence, interoperability, as well as sharing expertise and experience among member states. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, through this esteemed forum, allow me to remind you that the happening current dynamic international and regional security incident reflects the advancing of our common factual threat that need to be addressed properly through international cooperation, such as we need a robust and concrete international and regional strategy and action to tackle the development of terrorists such as ISIS and also radicalism. Indonesia has exercised the consent strategy through capitalizing of all of our national resources to support this campaign. We utilize such moderate Islamic organizations as the so-called Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah to socialize a true and peaceful religious teachings to all the Muslims in Indonesia. Indonesia also exerts its territorial forces from lower area command to higher area command as our ears and eyes to detect any possible threat as early as possible. And I would like also to advise to the international forces in the Middle East that the interdiction of logistic support of the terrorist group is very important to weaken their activities. There is no defined religion that teaches and incites violence and to perpetrate the act of killings. ISIS has committed crimes against humanity by killing innocent people. It is imperative that ISIS development has to be stopped and eradicated through collective effort. In terms of tackling the security situation on the sea, such as piracy and robbery that can impede the sea line of global trade and commerce, we need a concerted effort among the regional stakeholders through conducting joint coordinated patrol in Malacca Strait. We cannot afford the situation in Malacca Strait to turn out to becoming like in Somalian waters. The Asian community has been forced to take action in assisting the sea search of Rohingya boat people on the ashore of the ASEAN. All the ASEAN leaders need to gather together to address this humanity issue through conducting deliberation in the ASEAN Forum, such as ADMM and ADMM Plus, and then the same thing we conducted in Bagan, Myanmar, and Langkawi, Malaysia. We have to show that we respect human rights by conducting a concrete action to support the human rights. We are also shocked by another sudden earthquake that hit Nepal, causing 7,365 people perished and another death toll of 117 people over the following earthquake. The lesson learned that we can draw from both incidents are the need of regional quick and appropriate response of trained and expert personnel to provide humanitarian assistance in such catastrophe. We have to reflect our respect to human rights and humanity by conducting compassion and divine action. Another most significant threat out of the aforementioned factual threat is the epidemic disease, such as Ebola. About 11,000 people perished out of more than 2,000 cases all over the world. Most of the victims come from 3 West African countries. Not to mention the death of 507 medical personnel from the affected and supporting countries. Indeed, that was so ironic where the helping parties were also get infected. We find it is important for the region to work closely to face this challenge. Indonesia has also hosted the International Congress on Military Medicine, ICMM, in Bali quite recently for this concert deliberation. Separatism and insurgent still exist and threatening some affected countries in the region, including Indonesia. In this regard, the needs of non-intervention policy among member states to tackle this issue is becoming more indispensable. Because this kind of problem can only suit the concerned country policy based on its culture and internal understanding. We have to respect the sovereignty of the country. Cyber attack, information warfare, and intelligence. The current devastating incidents of cyber attack to the communication system of a country has been attacked. This has raised concern among us that need international and regional attention. We also need to strengthen our collaboration to eradicate the flow of illicit trafficking that poses a devastating impact of our beloved young and potential generation. And next, what should we do? It is the nature of responsibility and every government to find solutions over those issues. In this regard, we cannot afford to be left behind. Rather, we should think one step ahead over the development of the evolving of Retd. ASEAN has possessed such mechanism as a proper measure to confront any development of regional security issue through dialogue, annual defense military meeting, ADM and ADM+, and also other kind of expert meeting to discuss issues on economics, political, social and culture, and security. The forum of ADMM and ADM Plus have also been acknowledged as an ideal and effective role model to address international and regional security issues. The ASEAN member states, including keep their commitment to settle any dispute and differences through dialogue and peaceful means. In light of the above, the vast new form of security collaboration in Asia is inevitable. The reason why it is important, because a security incident that hit a national will at the same time affect other neighboring countries as well as international community. For example, the incident in Malacca Strait will not only necessarily affect Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, but also will affect the countries in the East Asia, Europe, Middle East, and also Northern American, as well as Australia and New Zealand. Another compelling example is the rising of ISIS threat in Yemen that has affected the geopolitics and geostrategy of the regional and international communities. Based on those tenable facts, we need a new form of effective collaboration more than what we already have today. It is not about adding more international or regional cooperative organization, but it is beyond that. The new concept, new culture, and understanding based on international common values and capabilities are more needed by all the stakeholders, experts, intelligence community in this Asia-Pacific region to find effective solution to address such an aforementioned common factual threat. Ladies and gentlemen, I was honored and privileged to attend this important and esteemed Shangri-La. This forum is very significant in addressing our regional issue. Thus, we need to follow on the result of this forum through holding more deliberation, focusing more on finding solutions to confront our common factual threats and challenges. This mechanism can also be used as an effective tool to find compelling solutions in the hot issue of South China Sea. There is an emerging need of dialogues to find solutions in the peaceful manners to solve the problem in South China Sea. I would like to suggest to the disputed area in ASEAN that can sit together to facilitated by the ASEAN countries to find solution in the peaceful manner. I believe also that the joint coordinated patrol for the peaceful purposes among stakeholders in the South China Sea is important and indispensable to promote peace and stability in the region. Indonesia is not a non-climate country, but it can affect the Indonesian maritime access and international maritime access. It means also that it can impede the global trade and commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, our shared common interest will inevitably create competition, tension, but also peaceful coexistence. In this regard, we have also to be aware that despite any political ups and downs in the relation between and among countries, and sometimes can lead to the involvement of military forces provocation, I would like to suggest that defense and military to military relation has to remain stable and strong. This constant relation can bridge any differences and defense diplomacy and misunderstanding and dispute for the purpose of reconciliation. Today and ever, military and defense instruments will play a very important role to promote peace, security, and stability that we dedicate for our beloved nation. Finally, I sincerely hope that the concept of this new form of security collaboration in Asia that I present today can contribute in the process of finding solutions to tackle any emerging factual threats in this beloved region. I'm very confident that through exercising the goodwill, the spirit of sincere brotherly relation and altruism, we can hand in hand find effective solutions to mediate our differences and disputes in our region that we hold dear. May the Almighty God give us grace, blessing, and realizing the noblest obliges. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ryacudu, for what I think was a really important set of remarks covering a number of different issues. Thank you very much for your evocative appeal that the Malacca Strait not suffer the horrors of the waters around Somalia, and for your very specific suggestions of how practically to move forward on cooperation on a number of different fronts. We'll want to discuss that in more detail. It's now my great pleasure to invite Inderjit Singh, the Minister of State for Defence of India, to address the Shangri-La dialogue. Thank you.
Namaskar. I would like to begin by congratulating the International Institute of Strategic Studies and the Government of Singapore for having organized yet another successful round of the Shangri-La Dialogue. This annual dialogue has emerged as a premier forum for exchange of views among strategic thinkers, policymakers, and practitioners interested in the Asia-Pacific defense and security issues. I would like to thank the organizers for the excellent arrangements and the warm hospitality that has been extended to my delegation. This plenary session of the Shangri-La Dialogue is on the theme, New Forms of Security Collaboration in Asia. This is a timely subject because both parts of this topic are presently seeing changes. By this I mean that on the one hand, Asia is acquiring a new salience and significance in the world, and on the other, the meaning of security cooperation in today's world is also changing in varied ways. Almost everyone now agrees that the 21st century will be the Asian century. Effectively, we are seeing a gradual return to the historical pattern where Asian economies contributed a major share of the global output. We should welcome this trend because it is only fitting that Asia, which houses an overwhelming majority of humanity, should also account for a major portion of the world's economy. The growth of Asia is important not only for the Asian countries, it has implications for overall global prosperity. A rising Asia will also become the principal engine to support and sustain the global economy. Security threats in this dynamic Asia have not only multiplied, but are acquiring new forms. Even as traditional forms of threat persist, newer threats are emerging that are potentially more disruptive, more complex, and dispersed. Countering these require a collaborative effort of all states in Asia. The case for a strong security architecture for Asia has never been stronger. The question is, are we ready for it as yet? Such an architecture will require innovative forms of international cooperation amongst Asian countries and also between Asian and non-Asian countries. Probably the greatest threat to today's society comes from the growth of terrorism and religious extremism. Terrorists have learned to make use of new technologies, including the internet, to violently disrupt our lives and economies. Moreover, terrorist networks are often financed through other criminal activity, including narcotic smuggling, which pose a security threat in themselves, making the combination even more dangerous. The threat is highest for open, democratic, and pluralistic countries like India, because terrorism and extremism challenge the very fabric and tolerant ethos of our societies. Countering the scourge of terrorism requires active collaboration between countries for real-time exchange of actionable intelligence, for monitoring and interdicting the financial channels that sustain terror networks, and for preventing the recruitment and training of terrorist recruits. The recent rise of ISIL in West Asia has also shown the need for collaboration between police and immigration authorities of different countries to prevent the travel of foreign terrorists, fighters to the theater of conflict. Some of the new forms of security collaboration we see today have arisen because we have begun to define a security in a more comprehensive manner than before. New concepts like food security, energy security, water security, information security, and security of navigation have emerged in strategic discourse. We have also come to look upon natural disasters and mass epidemics as security threats, as they can often disrupt our lives and societies much more dramatically than even military threats. These new and holistic conceptions of security have led to new forms of security cooperation between nations. Earlier, countries used to secure themselves from traditional military threats by adopting forms of neutrality or by aligning themselves in mutual defense arrangements with other countries. In our age, we have evolved a new form of security cooperation, one that is based on regular, structured dialogue between different nations rather than on formal alliances. ASEAN in Southeast Asia and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Central Asia are examples of this new form of security cooperation. ASEAN is without doubt the best example of a forum that promotes an environment of shared security in its region through a transparent, open, and inclusive dialogue. Not only has it fostered such dialogue amongst its own constituent members, but has also taken the lead in creating wider fora in the ASEAN Regional Forum and the East Asia Summit, which provides countries from within and outside the region an opportunity to confer together. For India, the centrality of ASEAN is an important part of our vision for an open, mutual, inclusive, and rules-based security architecture in the Asia-Pacific region, where disputes are resolved through dialogue and diplomacy rather than by unilateral show of force. Over the past 2 decades, India has rapidly expanded its engagement with the ASEAN, from a sectoral dialogue partner to a full strategic partnership. Recently, we inaugurated a separate diplomatic mission for the ASEAN to undermine the importance we attach to this grouping as an economic and strategic entity. We intend to meet the expectations of our friends within ASEAN who want India to play a more proactive role in helping address traditional and non-traditional security threats in Southeast Asia and the wider Asia-Pacific region. For most Asian countries to continue to grow rapidly, they will require assured access to energy resources and other commodities. We must remember that most of the world's shipping traffic, including energy shipments, traverse Asian waters. The same can increasingly be said of global value chains. Ensuring freedom of navigation in these waters is thus essential for all our security. For us in India, freedom of navigation on the seas has always been an important one, since our history has been shaped by the constant maritime interflow of goods and people between our coasts and other countries in Asia and Africa. The territory of India includes a coastline of 7,500 kilometers, 1,200 islands, and 2.4 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone. We are determined to build on our maritime traditions to foster security, cooperation, prosperity, and safety from nature's fury for our country, to which and all those countries to which we are connected by sea. India has always opposed the threat of unilateral force to resolve maritime territorial disputes, as this can disrupt normal trade flows, threatening the economic security of all countries that depend on free flow of marine commerce. We always urge all parties to such disputes to abjure military solutions and rely on diplomacy and international maritime law to come to a mutually acceptable outcome. Freedom of navigation and energy security is also threatened by piracy in crowded sea lanes. Cooperation between countries on exchange of information on white shipping and creation of marine domain awareness has acquired a new salience to prevent such threats at sea. We in India are creating a robust system of coastal surveillance and monitoring and are increasingly collaborating with partner countries to share best experiences, conduct joint exercises, and to exchange information. The Joint Coast Guard Dosti exercise between India, Sri Lanka, and Maldives are an excellent example of such collaboration between littoral states. I would like to specifically mention the bilateral naval exercises forum, SIMBEX, we have developed with Singapore. The 15th round of which was just concluded with the participation of an indigenously built stealth frigate and an anti-submarine warfare corvette from India. India also took the lead in 2008 to establish the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Today, it brings together 35 navies of the region with an aim to enhance mutual understanding of maritime challenges and develop our collective capacity to address these challenges. Ability to protect merchant shipping from piracy and to fight threats like smuggling, poaching, and illegal fishing, and trafficking of people. India has created a robust system of coastal surveillance relying on radar systems, interceptor boats, and registration and identification of bona fide fishing vessels. We have also collaborated with other countries in the Indian Ocean like Seychelles and Mauritius to help build the capabilities for coastal surveillance. Another increasingly important form of security collaboration between nations is humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Tsunamis and earthquakes have taken major toll on lives and livelihoods of Asian citizens in recent decades. Similarly, major industrial accidents or oil spills in the ocean can be hugely disruptive and often require concerted response from all the countries in the neighborhood to provide immediate relief and long-term rehabilitation. Our armed forces increasingly undertake joint exercises to enhance interoperability amongst themselves while responding to such crises. Enhancing our collective HADR capacity requires advanced countries to share technologies and platforms with countries that are willing to play a positive role in this regard. This can be a force multiplier and enable a stronger coalition to emerge in dealing with natural disasters and maritime threats. In India, we are gradually strengthening our capacity to respond to such disasters, not just in our own territory, but also in other parts of South Asia, in collaboration with our neighbors. Such collaboration was evident in the way we were able to respond when Maldives was faced with a potential drinking water crisis last year after its water treatment plant was destroyed in a fire. Recently, we took the lead in rushing rescue and relief teams to help the citizens of Nepal after a devastating earthquake. As far back as 2004, we had worked together with Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Indonesia to deliver immediate relief to the coastal areas devastated by the Indian Ocean tsunami. An Indian naval vessel, INS Saryu, has just participated in the week-long ASEAN Regional Forum Disaster Relief Exercise in Penang, northern Malaysia, in collaboration with the navies of China, Malaysia, and Thailand. Evacuation of nationals trapped in situations of military conflict is another scenario where states need to work together to leverage each other's strengths and capacities. When we recently evacuated our citizens from the war zone in Yemen, we also pulled out thousands of citizens of other countries. The same was the case in evacuation operations undertaken from Libya, Syria, and Iraq. The increasing penetration and dominance of the internet in our lives has created another potential new threat to our security and also established a new arena for states to collaborate for mutual security. As our systems for running public transportation, electricity distribution, and public service delivery become more and more dependent on virtual networks, hackers and other mischievous elements acquire the ability to bring our life to a halt through the simple insertion of a line of malicious code into our computer systems. The day-to-day transactions of the banking system and corporate finance can also be threatened if there are chinks in our cyber security. Increasingly, the internet and social media are also emerging as tools used by terrorists and extremist groups to motivate, radicalize, and recruit vulnerable populations for their destructive purposes. Countering all this requires a high degree of technical competence amongst our law enforcement agencies and also the willingness to work together with each other to collectively keep one step ahead of the miscreants. It also requires greater sharing of governance of the internet amongst nations and multiple stakeholders. Yet another form of non-traditional security threat that Asian countries have to increasingly confront is the result of environmental degradation. Excessive mining or deforestation in one country can often have serious environmental consequences in a neighbor, including floods, droughts, water and air pollution. Once more, countering such threats requires states to work together to understand geoclimatic phenomena, to establish mutually acceptable rules of the game, and to monitor their implementation. Finally, incidences of global pandemics are another new source of security risks for countries. Asia has been witness to the economic havoc that the SARS epidemic brought on our societies. As our countries become more and more interconnected and our citizens travel across the world on a daily basis, no country or region can insulate itself from such crisis. Asia must work with the rest of the world to develop collaborative mechanisms for early detection and containment of global epidemics. Regular exchanges between our health authorities and creation of regional response systems will be crucial to further such collaboration. These were some of the many thoughts I had on the new types of security threats that we face in Asia and the forms of collaboration that are required to counter them. As we march forward in this Asian century, we will no doubt come across even newer sources of threat to our collective security. However, I am confident that as long as we have the will to work together in a spirit of mutual accommodation and restraint, there is no threat that can arrest the rise of Asia. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much for that set of remarks which covered a number of different fields, and indeed all three ministers here addressed a number of different subjects. We've had a Shangri-La dialogue initiative, we might even style it SLDI, and in 3 parts, and a number of other specific proposals. So I do invite you all to seek the floor to make comments or ask brief questions. Can I just remind you that there's a 2-step process of putting your badge with a chip facing you in your microphone set and pressing the button. Your light will then turn green. That does not mean your microphone is on, but it means that you are in your queue. If your microphone is not on green, then you're not on the queue and you've missed one or both of those 2 steps. So could I first call on Dr. Liu Fukuo Liu to...
Thank you, John. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Fukuo Liu from National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. This morning we just heard Secretary Carter's express the new initiative, Southeast Asia Maritime Initiative, and then we now have Japanese ministers just now recommended his own version of Shangri-La dialogue initiative. I'm just wondering why everyone is toasting out such an initiative, whether there will be some sort of coordination. And I have to remind everyone that earlier this week, my president, Ma Ying-jeou in Taipei, also announced a new initiative, South China Sea Peace Initiative. And I thought that probably in the region, this is a time with this new form of security cooperation. And I thought that maybe some of us should really work together. As a minister just now suggested that everyone should work together, not really fighting against each other. So I think this specific question is really addressing to General Nakatani, why you are encouraging every one of us to develop this Shangri-La dialogue initiative. I look forward to it. And the serious question is how much and how you are going to implement such an initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll take a number of comments and questions and then come back to the panel. Next from Japan, Dr. Chikako Ueki.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chipman. I would like to address my question to Minister Nakatani. Thank you very much for delivering the policies of Japan. I think you yourself is a testament that Japan is different from the Japan in the past that had caused such pain and suffering to the region, people in the region, and to the world and to Japan as well. I appreciate the fact that you shared your experience as a former self-defense officer with us. I have a question about the Shangri-La Dialogue initiative that you mentioned. You talked about the importance of having information and intelligence and sharing that with the region. I would like you to elaborate a little bit. United States and Japan have agreed in the new guidelines to share and increase maritime domain awareness. And I was wondering whether what you have said means that you will be thinking of extending this shared information to the countries in the region as well in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, Dr. William Chung, Shangri-La Dialogue Senior Fellow at the IISS Asia office here. William?
Thank you, John. My question is addressed to Jen Nakatani. I like the way that you, in one breath, talk about vast land reclamation, and then you go on to quote Lao Tzu in the need for moderation to avoid danger. My question is very specific. Can you give us a status report on Japan's plans to deploy joint air patrols in the South China Sea, be it whether from Okinawa or from the Philippines? Thank you.
Thank you. And next, also from Japan, Aiko Doden from NKK.
Thank you. My question is regarding ASEAN. Minister Ryacudu has described ASEAN since 1968 as a history of strong cooperation. That was the case in tackling threats posed by perhaps Ebola or bird flu, which constituted a common threat to the lives of the people in the region, issues with the human security implication. But there were instances in the past when such cooperation was not entirely easy, given differences in political system of each member countries and different distances with the major powers like the US or China. And while at present ASEAN is faced with challenges such as South China Sea issue or Rohingya, which issues can be very divisive, highly divisive, how can ASEAN evolve into an organization of a truly strong organization as the member countries aspire to be?
Thank you. And from China, Major General Gongjiang Fugong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now our region is faced with very intricate and very comprehensive security challenges. That's why it's very necessary for the countries in the region to foster the security cooperation. Now I have the question for General from the Minister of Defense from Indonesia. I should say, with the rise of Indonesia and with the influence of this ASEAN, I believe maybe because the major power relations are as such, can ASEAN continue and will play a leading role in fostering security cooperations in the region? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And from India, Lieutenant General P.K. Singh.
Thank you, Chairman. I see that we are flagging the issues of concern more openly at this dialogue. and that's a welcome change to say that things must be flagged. And the issue that has been flagged specifically is about the South China Sea. Though we may talk about the issue, the fact remains that the reality on the ground is changing, and by the time we meet next year, it would have progressed further. So my specific question is, what is it that we should be doing to roll back or to stop the activities on reclamation over there? And the second part of my question is that I think we need to also look around that if we don't flag these issues and don't take action, then certain countries will move on to be emboldened to carry on activities, for example, changing the courses of rivers or creeping on land borders elsewhere, or even on nuclear issues. So my question is to all the three panelists, especially to the Japanese Defense Minister, as to what he would like to say on these. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the UK, Richard Lloyd, Mr. Parry Lloyd.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Nakatani. Minister, you spoke in your address of Japan's wartime actions and said that those actions brought suffering to people in Asian countries. But the apology which Japanese government have repeated annually since 1995 goes a lot further than that. It refers to errors in our history. It speaks of Japan's mistaken national policy, its colonial rule and aggression, tremendous damage and suffering, and refers to these as irrefutable facts of history. And it also offers deep remorse and heartfelt apology. For the avoidance of any doubt, will you state here today your own heartfelt apology to Asian countries for Japan's colonial rule and aggression, or is that something that you are unable to do?
And from India, P.S. Suryanaran.
This first question is addressed to the Japanese Defense Minister, General Nakatani. So you had mentioned something about trilateral military and security-related cooperation involving India, the US, and Japan. Will that extend to South China Sea as well? And the second question to the Indian Minister of State for Defense, in specific military terms, is India planning to have coordinated or joint patrolling with the US in South China Sea as part of the Modi-Obama initiative on Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean regions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll come back to the panel, and what I'll do is, given that there was a specific question to the Minister of State from India just now, give the floor first to him to answer that question, and then move to Minister of Defense Nakatani-san, who received 4 or 5 specific questions, and then to the Indonesian Defense Minister on the role of ASEAN. So please, Minister of State of India first.
President Obama was in India for the 26th January Republic Day parade, and there was a joint declaration. The declaration stated that our strategic partnership will be deepened with a view to enhancing friendship that is lasting. Also, this partnership would take all steps to ensure peace in the region. The specifics have not yet been ascertained, and they have not been brought down black and white, but the idea is that this friendship should develop in such a way that international law is not violated by anybody, and that peace and security can prevail so that everybody can prosper, all nations can prosper. This initiative has been done at the instance of Modi and Mr. Obama, and I think we will follow through with it.
Thank you very much. Minister Nakatani.
Thank you. I did propose this Shangri-La Dialogue Initiative. This is the 14th dialogue. And as we have more and more dialogues, we can have greater outcomes and we have greater influence. And through this dialogue, we are starting to see some common issues. Whatever we can do, I think we should take some initiatives, and that's why I made the 3 proposals. And the first proposal was the common rule and the law for the air and sea, and that is to do with queues, and we could have joint training. If defense ministers of various countries could talk about that in specific streams, that would be good. And also security for air and sea. The Malaysian aircraft, airplane, we still don't know where it has sunk. If we can look at the private sector airplanes as well, and have an infrastructure asset that we can share for security here as well. That would be good. We will see some submarines in the inner oceans as well. And in order to prevent incidents, it is important for us to have solid traffic data. We are able to share that now. Scientifically and technologically, we can do that now. And that is the kind of thing that we should concretely pursue. The third point is to respond to disasters. In Malaysia, there was an earthquake, and of course everyone went to help, but because of the chaos and crowd in the airports, it was very difficult for people to move in and out, and it was also difficult to get approval. Even though people wanted to go, they couldn't get there, and that means that people's lives are lost. So we could make some common rules about entry into countries at times of disaster. Those are the kind of things that we could possibly decide on at this dialogue and put into implementation. That was the context of my proposal. As for the South China Sea, we have been carrying out defensive defense through the years, and for our safety, the Self-Defense Force deals with our safety, but the regional stability is very important as well. So we're very interested in what is happening, and it is a future challenge for us, and for us to be able to see stability in this area, in this region. We need to work on that, and we are having deliberations on the law of peace and safety, security, and we need to look at what area we can go to, what we can do, and at what level we can be involved. And through our legislative process, we will be working on that for security and safety in this region. Japan is, of course, extremely interested, and we would like to contribute as much as possible in order to promote stability and security. As for Japan's understanding on the war, some people asked how I feel about it. Looking back on history, that what we did gave suffering to the people of Asia. That is a fact. We must not avert our eyes from that. Throughout the period after the war, Japan has expressed remorse and have felt remorse, and the Japanese government has expressed its views and has had discussions, and we will continue to do that. And I hope that we will be able to act in a way that the people of the region can trust Japan. In terms of sharing information in the region, information regarding the sky and the sea should be shared so that it can be utilized for the achievement of security in various countries. I'm not sure if my answers were sufficient, but I bring my comments to close now.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, General Ryacudu.
Jawaban yang pertama, kesepakatan bagaimana ASEAN mengatasi perbedaan yang ada. Kita tahu ASEAN sudah berdiri selama 48 tahun.
ASEAN has established for 48 years.
Mungkin saja selama 1 tahun sampai 5 tahun memang agak sulit untuk saling menyesuaikan.
And it has evolved through stages phase. Starting from the first 10 years, we endure the difficulties situation.
Tetapi dengan semangat kebersamaan melewati 10 tahun, apalagi setelah 40 tahun, kita di ASEAN sudah menyadari perbedaan-perbedaan yang ada.
But after passing the first 10 years, we can settle every differences among ASEAN member states.
Dengan semangat kebersamaan, semua persoalan-persoalan sesuai dengan kesepakatan, tidak akan menggunakan cara-cara kekerasan, tetapi melalui dialog-dialog.
We support the settlement through peaceful means among ASEAN member states by communicating each other and through dialogue among member states. So this is actually the spirit of brotherhood and brotherhood of ASEAN.
Dan ini sudah terbukti.
And it has been proven.
Yang kedua, bagaimana ASEAN tetap menjadi pemimpin di kawasan untuk menyelesaikan masalah. Saya rasa itu hampir sama.
And the second question about how ASEAN can sustain its leadership in the region.
Kita tetap akan menjadi pemimpin di ASEAN untuk mengatasi permasalahan dengan dialog, komunikasi, dengan pertemuan yang rutin.
We keep capitalizing our capacity to facilitate dialogues and communication among disputed countries, and we also would like also to become the leader in something like to giving some solution or advice among the disputed countries.
Dengan semangat untuk melaksanakan dan menghormati kesepakatan bersama yang dibuat pada waktu berdirinya ASEAN 40 tahun yang lalu.
With the spirit of consensus of respecting our values when ASEAN first established in 1968.
Dan ini sudah terbukti sampai sekarang tidak ada masalah yang besar dalam hubungan 10 negara di ASEAN ini.
And it has been proven that up till now there is no like a significant issue among ASEAN member states, so we can solve every issue peacefully.
Ya, mudah-mudahan kebersamaan di ASEAN ini dapat menjadi contoh untuk di kawasan lain untuk masalah kebersamaan ini.
I really hope that the collaboration among ASEAN member states can become role models for the other regional cooperation organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we've had a number of very specific proposals, and I hope that the rest of the Shangri-La dialogue can be used in part to discuss these in more detail. There'll be a lot of bilateral and multilateral meetings. We look forward to hearing more about the Shangri-La dialogue initiative, about humanitarian and disaster relief, and about the engagement of other powers with ASEAN states. Could you please join me in congratulating the three ministers for the time they've taken to prepare these remarks and for the policy suggestions that they have made for us. Thank you.